back to 8 Push Unfiltered, the podcast in which we pull back the curtain on some of the most complex and compelling topics in American history. I'm Jake.
And I'm Christos, and today we're diving into the century-long struggle between organized crime and politics in the United States during the 20th century, rooted deep in corruption, influence, and power.
When most people hear organized crime, they usually picture flashy suits, dangerous shootouts, and speakeasies. But the mob also had a major focus on controlling, manipulating, and infiltrating government, law enforcement, and labor unions.
So, let's start at the beginning. In the earliest 20th century, many immigrant communities flourished in major cities, especially Italian, Irish, and Jewish Americans. These groups faced serious poverty and discrimination, which created the perfect circumstance for different criminal networks to arise.
Then came Prohibition in the 1920s, which handed the mob a golden opportunity to expand their underground crime networks. The nationwide ban on alcohol turned booze into the number one product for underground business, and figures like Al Capone and Lucky Luciano built empires on bootlegging.
During the Prohibition era, there was lots of money to be made. Many people enjoyed their liquors, such as whiskey, and found escape in the bottle. This was especially true during the Great Depression. Many people were willing to pay top dollar to get into mob-owned speakeasies and get access to alcohol, leaving a huge market for the mob to take control of. People speak about Carnegie, Morgan, Rockefeller, and there were captains of industry during the Gilded Age, but we just can't forget the similar monopolies that people like Al Capone and Lucky Luciano held against alcohol during the Prohibition era. But we're going to talk more about that in the next episode.
These crime empires were bribing everyone, but not limited to judges, policemen, and politicians. Capone was essentially the owner of the politics in Chicago for a major time. Corruption became a widespread problem federal agencies were starting to notice and crack down on.
But in the 1930s and 40s, organized crime was very centralized, specifically due to the creation of something called the Commission. It was a government body strictly for the mafia families, and this is how they controlled many aspects of the city, such as gambling, labor unions, and construction.
Quick tip on that, if you've ever seen The Godfather, the Commission is, that group of the heads of the families when they meet. That's kind of what the Commission was. Speaking of labor unions, let's not forget about Jimmy Hoffa and his Teamsters. I mean, who can forget? His connection to the mafia gave them access to the union's pension fund. This then, in turn, was used to fund mob-owned businesses such as casinos or real estate.
And that's no theory. But what can be theorized is JFK's election. There have been many rumors saying that the mob helped Kennedy win in that 1960 election, especially in Illinois. The mob expected some kind of protection, but actually got exposed. Robert Kennedy started to aggressively target organized crime, and some say that this tension could have led to one of the many reasons behind JFK's assassination.
Yeah, that was definitely an interesting time. Shortly following the controversy surrounding JFK's election were the Valachi hearings, also known as the McClellan hearings. Joseph Valachi was a low-ranking member of the Genovese crime family, and after someone who he thought was going to assassinate him in prison, he made a deal with the government in which he testified against the mob. This case was monumental because Valachi was the first ever government witness to testify about the existence of the mafia, being a mafia member himself. And also his hearings were testified on live television and the information publicly accessible. These hearings set the groundwork for future mafia busts. In the 1970s and 80s, there was a shift away from the government approach to organized crime. New tools like RICO, the Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, helped federal prosecutors go after entire crime families, not just individual perpetrators. Then came the infamous Mafia Commission trial of the 1980s.
The federal government was starting to take direct action to put down organized crime because of RICO, and this can be especially seen during U.S. versus Salerno. Tony Salerno, also known as Fat Tony, was an underboss for the Genovese family. He was essentially the fall man. He wanted the police to get him so the real boss couldn't be arrested. In the case, Salerno was convicted for racketeering, which is when multiple people work together in illegal activities to earn a profit. He was sentenced to 100 years in prison and forced to pay a hefty fine for his racketeering.